Hi there and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make the cutest Easter baskets. This is an oldie but a goodie. About 35 years ago, some friends of mine and we took a class and we made these baskets, but we made them for Halloween. I made them for my niece and nephew, and nephew is now 42 and my niece is 40. A friend of mine, Sharon, is joining me. I don't give you any measurements for how much yardage you need or how many different fabric prints you want to use, because that's all personal. In this basket, I used 3 different prints. Well, I used a solid and 2 prints. And for this basket, I made it all in the same print. So it really doesn't matter. Either way you do it, it's going to turn out adorable. The one thing you need a lot of is glue sticks, because this thing is basically all hot glued together. Technically, there's no sewing. I used my sewing machine to make the ruffle, but I also show you how to make a ruffle with a needle and thread. That's not really sewing. So anyway, let's get started. The first thing we need to do is trace around the outside of the basket and then keep trimming the cardboard until it fits inside the basket. Then we're going to use the cardboard as a template to cut out our batting. Now we're going to cut out the fabric about 2 inches wider than our template. Next, we're going to glue the fabric to the back of the cardboard with the batting between the cardboard and the fabric. When you start to glue, you always want to do opposite sides. So if you start at the top, you're going to go to the bottom. If this was a compass, you'd start north, south, and then you do east, west, and then you would just fill everything else in, because that will keep the fabric always centered. Next, we need a piece of fabric that will line the inside of the basket. So we need this piece of fabric to be about 2 inches wider than the side of the basket. Now we're going to take our lining, we're going to turn the top over just a bit so we have a nice finished edge, and we're going to glue it to the inside of the basket. I only bought 1 yard of the yellow fabric that I was using for the inside of my basket, so my lining was in 3 pieces. So I had to turn the edge of the fabric under just a little, and I overlapped the lining that was already glued down, so it just looked continuous. To finish the lining, you just need to get rid of the excess fabric. So what I always do is I just snip the fabric a bit and then I tear. Then I know it's going to be nice and straight. Turn the edge under, glue it down, and you're done with the lining. Now we need the batting for the outside of the basket, and I've used different weights of batting. It doesn't really matter. The batting's just to give the basket a little poof. And you want the batting to be a little bit bigger than your basket. Now you know why we needed so many glue sticks. We use a lot of glue for this project. We're going to turn the edge under and we're going to glue, and again you need to go side to side, back and forth, so that you keep the batting centered. I find the easiest way to glue the batting on is to just go back and forth, getting it glued, and when you're almost all done, then you just go in and you just glue down all the little bits that are still up. Then you can just go right around the basket and just make sure it's all glued down. For the fabric that goes around the outside of the basket, I don't know why I did this one differently, but I just cut it out. I left it in a square. I just made sure that it was big enough to go around the basket. And we glue the fabric to the basket the same way we've been gluing everything else. You just turn the top under a bit and you glue it, and you go back and forth, side to side. And the only thing I did differently is I trimmed the fabric as I went. Just glue in small areas, maybe 1 inch to 2 inches, and you don't have to worry about the top that this is going to look perfect, because the top of this is all going to be covered in a ruffle. You can see here that everything I've glued down so far has been pretty even. And now I can just go around the basket gluing everything else down. Here's how it looks when everything is glued down. To make the ruffle, you just need to determine how big you want your ruffle to be. My basket was big enough that I wish I had made my ruffle bigger, but I think my ruffle was 3 inches wide, so the ruffle would have been 1.5 inches. To determine how much fabric you need to make your ruffle, you want the fabric to go around your basket 3 times. That should give you a nice full ruffle. I don't know why I don't have any footage of me cutting out the ruffle, but again, I just make a little snip and I tear. Ironing your ruffle is optional. In the next basket that we do, the ruffle was not ironed and it looks great. I almost wish I hadn't ironed mine. This is option 1 for making the ruffle. I have a ruffle foot, so I used it. If you like to sew, I would definitely get a ruffle foot. They're fun to use and they're so quick and easy. Here is option 2. I used a craft needle and thread to make my ruffle. You could also use a regular needle. I doubled the thread. I just didn't want my thread breaking. And now you're going to take your ruffle and glue it around the top of the basket. You can see here, I could have used a bigger ruffle. And to finish it off, I cut off the excess, I turned it under and glued it down. To give our ruffle a finished look, we're going to glue ribbon over the top of the ruffle. This step is optional, but I like to wrap ribbon around the handle just to give it that over-the-top look. We're almost done. We just need to make 2 messy bows. Messy bows are so easy. You just need to use an assortment of ribbons. I used all different colors that matched my fabric. Rick-rack, I used some wired ribbon. You can use lace. You can even tear your fabric into strips and put that in your messy bow. I like to start my bow with some wider wired ribbon just to give my messy bow a little more body. And I used a zip tie to cinch my bow. I got some wooden bunnies from the Dollar Tree. I painted the front of the bunnies white and I put that in the center of my bow to finish it off. And glued the bows to my basket and I was done. I think it turned out so cute. It really is an adorable basket. For basket number 2, we're going to make an insert to go inside the basket. It's not glued to the basket. Just like the first basket, we're going to cut out a piece of cardboard to fit on the inside of our basket. We're going to cut out our batting using the cardboard as our template and cut out our fabric 2 inches larger than our cardboard. And glue the fabric to the cardboard. Sharon glued her fabric to the cardboard. She just started on one side and worked all the way around. She didn't go back and forth, and it still worked out fine. Next, she cut out and made her ruffle. Sharon also used the ruffle foot on the sewing machine to make her ruffle, and then she attached it to the back of the insert. Her ruffle was also in 2 or 3 pieces, so she had to turn the raw edge under and glue it down on both ends to make it look continuous. And she used cute pom-pom trim to embellish the top of her insert. She used beacon glue. She thought it worked way better to put the trim down than hot glue. Now she's cutting her ribbon to make her messy bow, but we did run into a little hiccup. I gave her a zip tie to cinch all the ribbon together to make the bow, but Sharon didn't know how to use a zip tie. I just thought everyone knew how to use a zip tie. So using a zip tie for the first time, you want to put it in where you hear clicking. Then you know it's going to cinch tight.
Did you hear that? She's being very, very something or other.
She tied 2 shoestring bows and put them in the center of her messy bow, glued them down, and she was done. Another adorable basket. For basket number 3, we're just going to do the outside of the basket. You already know all the steps. The only thing that makes it a little bit different is the shape of the basket. So for this basket, I did the sides nice and flat, and I took the tucks, if you want to call them, where you take the excess fabric, and I put it on the corners of the basket. You can see here that I've almost glued the sides together. I left just a little space, and then this is how I did the corners. I think you can see it easier than I can explain it. The other difference is where the ruffle overlapped, I needed to glue that as well. This is the ruffle that I made with the needle and thread. I did not use the ruffle foot. So if you're going to make a ruffle this way, the one thing you need to remember is when you're gluing it on, you can adjust those ruffles so that all the ruffles look nice and even. It's not more gathered in one spot and looser in another. You can just still adjust them. You can adjust them for a little while. It does take a minute for that glue to dry. And everything else was the same. And we have one more adorable basket. Do you have a favorite? Are you going to try to make one? Leave a comment below. I would love to know.